Hi everyone, my name is Michelle and I am going to be going through my case study and my lesson plan, which is tailored to a student with hearing impairment. So the first thing I'm going to do is read through his case study really quick, and then I'm going to go over some key points of the lesson plan. Mateo is a 5-year-old kindergarten student attending public school. He's an only child to a Hispanic mother and father, both of whom speak Spanish at home while also helping him learn English. Mateo was diagnosed with CHL, or conductive hearing loss, at the age of 2. As an infant, Mateo suffered from frequent colds, resulting in a buildup of excess fluid in his right ear. This fluid was accompanied with inflammation and resulted in what's classified as otitis media, more commonly known as a middle ear infection. Oftentimes, Mateo's expression of discomfort was misunderstood by his parents. While Mateo was expressing pain, his parents perceived him as just being restless or irritable. As Mateo grew older, his parents would also suggest that he didn't listen to them or that he would become defiant and ignore them, when in fact he was actually having legitimate difficulty hearing their prompts. After persistent trouble with listening and communication skills, Mateo's parents were recommended to bring him to an audiologist, where he was given his CHL diagnosis. He was fitted for a hearing aid upon diagnosis. A person with conductive hearing loss hears speech and other sounds faintly. One could describe the sound as being muffled or heard through a barrier. Mateo's hearing aid has been specifically programmed to cancel out background noises so that he can use his mild ability to hear more precisely. While Mateo is always eager to attend school and make new friends, he demonstrates signs of being self-conscious, realizing that he's the only student in his class with a hearing aid. Mateo also receives ENL services due to his bilingual upbringing, in which he's pulled out of the classroom for 40 minutes a day for language support. Mateo enjoys hands-on activities such as art and building, and he feels comfortable in an environment where he has both the language support and the preferential seating. Mateo also benefits greatly from visual aids and prompts, as well as written directions. So that's the case study. And now what I'm going to do is just highlight some things about the lesson plan. So my lesson plan was taken from the idea, a special me on the list. So a special me is kind of like a self-portrait lesson plan, which I am an art teacher and I have done self-portrait lessons with kindergarten students, and they're really fun and they're very engaging and they're very successful. So it's definitely a fun lesson to do with kids of this age group. I'm going to go over my objectives, and then I'm just going to run through a couple of things that I would do in the actual lesson itself. So the objectives are that the students will be able to articulate verbally what is special about them. Upon understanding and noting the key differences between themselves and their peers, students will begin to develop the skill to render themselves in a creative yet accurate way, which means that they would be able to actually draw themselves in a way that's creative and fun, but also is a likeliness to what they actually look like. Students will be able to develop a list of physical components that are required for creating a self-portrait, while strengthening their use of question words and connecting their life experiences to words. And those things directly relate to the standards for kindergarten in both visual arts and language arts. Students will develop an ability to ask who, why, and how in regards to the way that they look. A couple of resources that I would use for this lesson are the book I Like Myself, which was suggested from the initial posting of this lesson plan idea. I also threw in there the book It's Okay to Be Different by Todd Parr. Todd Parr is an excellent writer for students who have like differences, and it's just nice like inclusivity reading. And then a YouTube video that from a series that I love called Art with Maddie and Dada. Okay, so for the lesson plan, it's an art lesson plan. So there's a lot of discussion in the beginning, and there's a little bit of responding and analyzing. So I would show the students a portrait of myself and kind of ask them to brainstorm and make comparisons and connections between the image and me and how they know it's me, just to kind of get them thinking about, okay, a self-portrait, it has to have likeliness to the person. It's got to look like the person. And after that brief discussion, the teacher will prompt the students to come up with a recipe for creating a self-portrait. So I would just want to show you guys how I would do the recipe, just to give extra visual support, not only for my student Mateo with hearing impairment, where he would need visual aids, but also my students who receive ENL services who would prefer to have some of the written directions in Spanish as well. So I would have our face recipe, and then I would list some of the facial features in English and Spanish along with a visual, so that it's nice and clear and concise for the class. Moving on from there, so all of the students will be paired up with a buddy. For Mateo, not only does he receive preferential seating in the classroom so that he can be close enough to me to read my lips during the discussions, but also so that the acoustic sound is comfortable for him given his hearing aid. But I would also, during this time, make sure that he's paired with another ENL student to have that peer support. And so then we would go from there right into the guided and independent practice, which is the way that I would basically run the class with the drawing portion of the lesson. So what I would do is I would give them, these are a couple of tracers that I just kind of made quick just to show you, of facial shapes. So I would have the students kind of hold one up just to see, no, that one doesn't look like me. That one's too small. That one's too round, but this one is good. So then they would take it and they would place it on their paper like this, right in the middle. And I'm going to do this quickly just because I don't want this video to be too long. But what I would do is have them trace, okay, and if they wanted, they could do buddy tracing, which works really nicely, where their buddy holds their tracer down for them with their hands while using their own hands. They do the tracing, just kind of nice buddy system there for help. I would have them draw 2 lines down at the bottom for the neck, and then the bottom of the shirt. And this would really be all I would do for like overall guided practice. I mean, I would go in and do guided practice for each of the facial features, but that's where they can get a little bit more creative and kind of do it themselves. So after 40 minutes of both guided and independent practice, and teacher circulating the room, I would move to the closing of the lesson, which I just want to highlight because it's my favorite part of the lesson. So the teacher will repeat the core concepts discussed during the closing so that Mateo can hear them clearly. Part of hearing impairment accommodations require repetition just to make sure that the student is hearing the, whether it's a class discussion or a teacher discussion, clearly. So the teacher at the end of the class would have students volunteer to share each other's work. It's called a view and share activity, where their partner would hold up their work and discuss. So let's say Bella was my partner. My partner was Bella. She drew her glasses and she colored her hair black. And she added a bow because she really likes to wear bows in her hair. And it's just kind of a nice closing activity and a summative assessment to get the students talking about not only what they did, but what their partner did, just to kind of show the deepening of understanding for self-portraits in regards to themselves and also in regards to their peers. So that's pretty much it. My lesson plan has a lot of accommodations highlighted in orange throughout the whole lesson plan. So I could go through them, but it would just make the video quite long. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the lesson. Thanks.